AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice podcast, your inside connection to outdoor legislation. From the Beltway to policy happening your way, we're covering it all. I'm your host, Fred Bird. Join us as we explore public land access, wildlife and fisheries management, Second Amendment rights, the triumphs that shape our nation, the sports we all love, and the stories that fuel our passion for the great outdoors. This is the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Welcoming in now our Fisheries Director, Chris Horton, and Connor Bevan with the American Sportfishing Association. What's your official title, Connor? I'm sorry.
The Inland Fisheries Policy Director.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to not have you on that. But welcome. At this session, we are discussing live bait bans, and we're also going to get an update on topics that our audience is very familiar with: Rigs-to-Reef and red snapper management. But Connor, I want to turn to you right now. I know you're the in-house expert, as it were, on live bait bans. Starting to see this trend, and you can speak more to it. And then in my home state, New Hampshire, we saw this. And I don't know if they were targeting Arkansas shiners specifically or if there was other, but anyway, it was going to create an issue for retailers, for bait suppliers, and our fishermen, especially now that we got hard water for the first time in December, in I think like a decade. Folks want to go out there and drop the traps and do some fishing.
Yeah, and New Hampshire was, maybe the first state that we kind of were aware of this emerging issue, but it certainly wasn't alone in
Right.
some of these emerging live bait bans as that have been proposed. So we saw I think initially, in New Hampshire and New York, these identical pieces of legislation that proposed to ban the interstate sale and purchase of live bait. And, doing some digging into where these efforts came from, who's pushing for these. We saw with the National Aquaculture Association, they managed to put together a very helpful report on kind of the origins of this. And, in doing some digging here, they found that there was a European organization, Upstream Policies, that was working with some animal welfare funders to put together a campaign that they saw as a successor to what was the European Coalition to Abolish Angling. And, building off of that track record, they turned their attention to the United States and started looking at various different states where they could pass these interstate live bait bans. And the legislators that were introducing these bait bans, were framing this as an invasive species issue, and that was right within what Upstream Policies was pushing for. So, in thinking back to that Coalition to Abolish Angling, they had sought to engage different European countries in these kind of animal welfare pursuits. But even in Europe, those efforts didn't go so far. But once they wrapped it in the veneer of this being an invasive species issue, all of a sudden, it started to catch on a little bit more in Europe. So they tried to apply the same kind of methodology in the United States. And, in New Hampshire, for one, this bill was introduced back in February or in January. It was heard in February and was voted down, unfortunately. In New York, that bill is still active. But with that legislation out there, I mean, the intention to effect a ban on the interstate trade of live bait would effectively amount to a wholesale ban on all live bait fishing in New Hampshire and New York. These states don't have significant in-state production. There's not a lot of wild harvest. And as you mentioned, the Arkansas shiners, that's where a lot of that supply comes from. So in banning that interstate trade, this would have meant, tackle shops would not have live bait for sale. Anglers would not be able to buy this live bait. And it would effectively accomplish what these animal rights activists are seeking to do, which is the wholesale ban on all live bait fishing. Um, so, we put together this report here on the tracking live bait bans has been introduced. I'd be happy to get more into that and talk about where this group's apply this effort in other states as well.
Please do.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. Let's bring it. Before we do, I just want to point something out, and I think it's an interesting either parallel or juxtaposition, if you will. We often talk about anti-hunting. It's like, they're coming after hound dogs, they're coming after bear hunting, they're coming after trapping, right? But like, it's funny within the hunting community, people tend to think they're safe. Deer hunting's always been a thing. We're going to be safe. Fishermen, anglers, like who would come after anglers? And then boom, here you go. There's a complete anti-angling angle to this. And it's just like the hunting community, one sliver at a time. Let's go ahead and attack it till eventually we get the whole thing. That's their angle.
Yeah,
People don't think about it.
yeah, absolutely. We got a session on this a little bit later today, and that's exactly what I was going to start off with. Is we think of the antis coming after us, well, they're coming after the hunting side mostly. And I really can't think of a national type campaign on anti-fishing since PETA's fish feel pains. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
years ago.
that's right.
And that went nowhere because it wasn't based in science. So yeah, this is the first time that we're seeing that national type effort here to eliminate fishing. Ultimately, is where we're headed with this because there's no science to back it.
Right. I'm not going to speak for New Hampshire, but obviously been using live bait forever, my entire lifetime. And I think it's disingenuous to use the argument of an invasive species where we have not, as far as I know, seen any negative effects of using this, specifically Arkansas shiners, as a means of take or means of bait. Most of the time, if they don't catch anything, they just die and float to the bottom, really. Like they're not surviving the condition they're in. They're either getting eaten or they're falling to the bottom and feeding something else, right? They're not reproducing and taking over a body of water like plants, milfoil, and junk like that, and mussels.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think the lack of scientific rationale for these bans on interstate trade is why state fish wildlife agencies have come out in opposition of this. I mentioned in New York and New Hampshire these bills were introduced, and to talk about antis kind of getting into fishing and reviving this fish fuel pain campaign that PETA was running years ago. They're learning from other antis. Look at Colorado, for example. This group introduced a citizens petition to affect kind of the same ban on the interstate trade of live bait, but used a similar process that a lot of other antis have used to bring forward different anti-hunting regulations in Colorado in years past. So I think the other interesting thing about this group is that they've tried to cloak some of this stuff in this really phony science. They put out a few different publications where they've claimed to find viruses in fish not known to be susceptible to these fish. They've put together these really alarming findings, but declined to share any methodology. Have really neglected to follow through on a lot of the requirements to disclose these findings with APHIS, and yet they've gone into different state capitals with this fake science and effectively given this to legislators and said that there's a pressing invasive species issue here. So fisheries professionals, fisheries scientists, state fish and wildlife agencies are kind of well versed that this group's findings and some of the publications that they put out there are misleading. But with this group looking at different states to push this campaign in, legislators might not be aware of just how incorrect some of the science is. The fact that there's no methodology and the group's really misleading or intentions and the origins of this group as well.
I mean, so the problem being is, you have this, for lack of a better term, ignorant legislator that a constituency or an influential group will come to. Okay, that makes sense. Not knowing anything, they bring the bill into committee. Now it's there. Now it's up for consideration, and more ignorant folks will be like, "Well, that makes sense," which really highlights the importance of our collaboration between CSF and ASA, and we're really working together, and then working within the NAS network. That's what we're here for. Working with our state legislators to educate and advocate, and be like, listen, blow the pony, man, because what you're getting is garbage, and here's why. and which is why we were effective together in New Hampshire and killing that in committee.
Yeah, unfortunately, none of these efforts to date have come to pass. I think, we've been really effective in, working with legislators, working with the NASC network here of different sportsmen's caucuses in helping to shine light on this issue and really digging into to where these bills are coming from. But, it goes to show that we've got, a lot of work to do and continuing to educate legislators to keep the kind of greater sportsmen's community aware and
Yeah.
the angling community aware of what this group is trying to do, and the fact that antis are now making plays into
Yeah.
the fishing space.
Crazy. Do we know the money behind this?
Yeah, it's coming from a UK-backed organization, something along the lines of charity entrepreneurship. They
Okay.
put out this request for proposals a few years ago, seeking for an organization to come together to, affect a campaign to ban live bait fish. It was taken up by a few different European researchers as well.
Mm.
You go back and you read that founding charter, and they start looking at states where they think these bans might fly, and the first ones they circle are Florida and Ohio. And that kind of goes to show that maybe they're a little bit out of touch here, but
Yeah.
certainly, as they're progressing, I think they're starting to target states like Colorado, states where other antis have tried to make inroads.
Yeah.
So this campaign's getting a little more complex, but they're continuing across different states.
That definitely tracks on the hunting side too, especially like anecdotally looking at social and a lot of the negative, vile stuff that comes out on these threads. Like in the hunting community, you look at where the origin of these, and it's all European based, especially out of the UK, like the really vile death threat type stuff that comes out. So that makes all the sense in the world to me. And that's unfortunate. It sucks, but we're fighting it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, New Hampshire had some really promising results. I mean, that was a 0 to 15 vote in committee, so that was a pretty definite. We're not necessarily believing the science.
Yeah,
We're going to trust our state agency folks here.
Yeah, I mean, and then just the tradition, the long-standing heritage on that, and just what we do in that state, in other states too. It's not just New Hampshire, but yeah, it's easy to look at that and be like, "Oh, stop, just stop." Not necessarily in all other states though. Colorado freaks me out having you hear you say that, especially again looking at stuff like Prop 127 in the last election cycle. Not angling, but I mean that same sentiment is there, and you whip up a whole crazy constituency that just yeah, save the trees, save the animals. Like okay, but for all the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah, and I mean, there already exist a number of different industry practices and standards for testing, for biosecurity, certifications that state agencies work with verified and licensed dealers to ensure that bait fish coming across state lines are disease free,
Yeah.
don't have invasive species. A lot of these practices are in place. And that's, I think, why we've seen a lot of support from state fish and wildlife agencies and interest in fisheries scientists to push back on what this group's putting out there. And also frame just kind of the economic and participation
Yeah.
component of this. I mean, this group has also managed to get in different peer-reviewed journals some information saying that you can pretty much affect any ban on live bait you want, and there's no impact on participation. Which you start looking at that methodology, and it gets pretty shoddy.
That's absolutely incorrect.
Absolutely incorrect. And I mean, you start to look at the national numbers, the state by state numbers. I mean, major shares of the angling public, up to 2/3 nationwide, fishes with live bait at some point during the year. This is a hundreds of $1 million business right here. So the kind of impact of these bans would be substantial.
Yeah. Again, coming back to the hard water season that we're in, I would again anecdotally observing. I would say more guys are using tip ups than they are, using the Vexilar and jigging on the bottom for panfish. They're going after bigger game fish, largemouth smallies, and some, lake trout and landlocked, I guess landlocked salmon, right? Is that the way to put it? In Lake Winnipesaukee, that's huge, and they're all using shiners or they're using some sort of live bait. They are not jigging that stuff on the bottom. So, and I will tell you, the Winnie Derby is a big deal, and it's a big revenue driver, and we get people from all over the country that come in, that spend their hard-earned dollars, not just on their angling stuff, but they're staying in hotels and fuel, and folks taking their ATVs out to the the middle of the lake. Like, that's a big deal, the ripple effect. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, live bait is pretty much the entry for fishing for a lot of folks. I mean, you, you don't have to go out and invest thousands of dollars in expensive equipment, learning to fish all these different lures and techniques and all the different rod and reel setups you need for this particular technique. I mean, you want to go catch fish, go get a bucket of minnows
Yeah.
and a bobber,
Mm.
and that's your best way
You
to
you go get
start it.
you can go to most yard sales in my area and get tip ups, for pennies on the dollar, bait pennies on the dollar, drill a hole and, you're fishing as opposed to a $400 radar system like a Vexilar and then all the accoutrement that come, which is great. I love that stuff. I think it's fun to do, but not everyone has that discretionary income that can drop money on a piece of equipment like that, So anyway, uh, worth watching, worth learning more about, but it seems like for now, at least this session under control.
Yeah, I think what we're circling now, and part of what we're hoping to highlight in this report that ASA, with the help of CSF and a number of our different sport fishing community partners, has just released, is the fact that this group is continuing to push these bills in the 2026 legislative session. We're hearing from agencies and legislators that this group's reaching out,
Mm.
sharing some of this phony data that they put together, and we need to stay prepared and informed and ready to combat these bills when they emerge.
Very good. So that's our live bait discussion, I think, for now. We got a handle on it. The remaining time we have two major issues to discuss, and Rigs-to-Reef and red snapper management. Um, Chris's movie debuted, well, here for NASC at our movie night, and that was well received. Chris signed autographs. No, he didn't.
No, it is not my movie. It's Arena. I was able to help put this thing, put it together and bring the right folks that are really knowledgeable along the coast about the importance of the oil and gas platforms and the habitat that they've created to the coastal communities down there. So it ended up turning out to be a really really good film, and just like we've had with other debuts or first time showings at different events, a lot of positive feedback
Yeah.
from folks. Like I had no idea. We're sold. What can we do to help fix this
Yeah,
problem?
I mean,
So,
well, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum. Like, it's just an easy sell one, especially once you see something like that,
yeah,
right?
right.
It's visually, it's stunning, and like, it's an easy story to tell. Like, why would you remove a whole new ecosystem in favor of mud?
Right. Yeah, and frankly, like everything else, it's part of the process to get these things into the Rigs-to-Reef program is not very efficient. When you have
Right,
5
right.
federal agencies that have a hand in the permitting process, it takes a while.
Yeah.
So we've got to clean that up a little bit. Still make sure that the same environmental safeguards, like the wells, will have to be capped and abandoned and plugged and sealed in the same manner they would if they were brought to shore. That'll always be a fundamental part of it. We want to make sure that there's no dangers of hydrocarbon leakage.
Mhm.
But the structure itself, with all these critters and these decades of coral communities that have built up over time, corals that don't even exist in most of the other uh, part of the Gulf, and actually wouldn't even be existing
Right.
in the northern Gulf if it wasn't for these artificial
Right.
structures. I mean, the intrinsic value there is something worth making this program more efficient so we can keep more of them out there.
Yeah.
We had 7,000 at one point. As of this morning, we're down to 1,050. 502 of those are on terminated leases. So we're looking to lose half of those pretty
Oh,
soon.
man.
So the time is now to make some changes. Fortunately, we have bipartisan legislation in Congress, in the House, working on the introduction in the Senate here, hopefully before too long, and and we have interest in congressional leadership to move these bills. So stay tuned. Hopefully, when we hit the ground running early in 2026, we'll start seeing these bills move and get them over the finish line
Okay.
this year.
Thoughts from you on that, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, this is really important legislation, and I'll say that there's a number of different federal and state programs and private efforts to build out and create new fish habitat. We got to look at some of the existing fish habitat that's out there and make sure we're not taking this out of the water. This is really economically crucial for a lot of anglers. Fishing saltwater, fishing Gulf Coast, going out there where there are years and years of aggregation and habitat development out there, to the degree that we can keep those protected, keep that in the water. We're really making a difference on the fisheries in that part of the country.
Yeah.
So feel like we're in a good spot. It's just the wheels of government turn slow,
Yeah.
even in Congress. so,
Yeah. No,
so it's one of those things where you got to keep your shoulder to the wheel, and eventually that tire starts spinning fast, and it happens. And get it done. So we're optimistic we're gonna get it done.
Yeah, it would be timely if we could do so before next election cycle. Yeah,
Yeah.
feels to me it feels like it would be a good opportunity. Uh, all that aside, what's the update on the red snapper? Are we talking the Atlantic side or is we the
Yeah, we're all good in the Gulf.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, where I fish in Alabama, our season's gonna run till New Year's Eve. So
Oh, no kidding.
I would love to have a New Year's Eve party on the boat, not drinking, but just catching red snapper. The last of the year. That's gonna be one of my goals. I want to catch the last red snapper off Alabama waters one of these years.
You
Yeah,
specifically.
me specifically.
Very good.
Uh,
That's a good goal.
but
Are we talking about the state level inventory?
yeah, it's this in the Gulf. The states manage the red
Right.
snapper recreational quota, and that's why it's been so successful.
Correct.
Because the states programs, their data collection programs are so much more timely and accurate, and they
Mhm.
can close the season more quickly if we're going to exceed our quota. But they can also uh, make sure that we're still well under our quota, so we can continue fishing.
Mhm.
Whereas in the past with federal fisheries management, they project how long our season can be, and that's it. That's all you get.
Right.
And the last time they did that was in 2017. They said we had 3 days. And so since 2017, when they gave it to the states beginning in 2018, 2019, under what's called exempted fishing permits to be able to fish outside the norm and in order to test this new management methodology, from that point, the states started getting more and more days because they were using their
Yep.
data collection systems rather than the feds. And again, from 2017 till now, we went from 3 days coastwide to most states staying open more than 60 days, several states up to 200 days
Yeah.
open on the same stock of fish just because we have better data. South Atlantic has not been quite in that position. We had 2 days this year. We had 1 day last year in the South Atlantic. Uh, Fortunately, the states have come together. We've been meeting with them and urging them really look at what the Gulf has done. We really need you guys to stand up a state data collection program. And they have taken the bull by the horns. Florida already had it because they just transitioned their Gulf side state reef fish survey to the
Mm.
full state reef fish survey, I think 4 or 5 years ago. So they've already got their data collection program in hand, and it's already showing the discrepancies that we saw in the Gulf with the federal data over
Yeah.
there. But we needed the other 3 states to step up. Earlier this fall, they all stepped up. They have developed exempted fishing
Okay.
permits that they have submitted um, to NOAA, to the Secretary of Commerce to give them the authority to manage the red snapper season. Florida's proposing, they think they can go 39 days. And then the other 3 states are proposing 2 months, a 2-month season. And they will have concurrent new data collection programs that they will be testing at the same time. Now, there's apprehension that, oh, well, we could exceed the quota. Well, we heard that in the Gulf too, but it didn't happen.
Mhm.
If the states have a better way of monitoring how many fish we're landing and how many fish we're releasing, because right now discards are what's driving the system. Um, if we can convert some of those landings to discards, we can still stay well under the ACL using a better system of data collection that the states are gonna
Mhm.
be implementing. So we're starting this direction. We're still a long ways from being where we are in the Gulf, but this is a huge first step, and all 4 of the South Atlantic states should be commended for that. So
No doubt.
we'll see. We're not there yet. The Secretary of Commerce still has to approve these EFPs, but we're optimistic that this administration is going to do that
Yeah.
because they realize we can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result,
Right.
a different outcome.
You look at, Connor touched on it about economic impacts in the Gulf and what that's done for the local economies, each of those states, jobs created, ecotourism, et al. Same thing stands to reason around this specific species on the Atlantic side and those great fisheries from the Carolinas down. How is that going to be facilitated for the average rec angler? Like, how are they going to report? What's that system going to look like?
Well, and that's part of the proposed. Now, again, this isn't final, so the states will now work with NOAA to provide some revisions to how their data collection program is actually going to work. But right now, it's going to be through an app. It's going to be mandatory reporting, which is what we have in the Gulf. Is well, for some states right now, mandatory reporting, but over there, we're going to need for this first one to be able to get these season extensions. We're going to need mandatory reporting
Yeah.
and cooperation. Anglers are, based on all the feedback we've heard from anglers, they're ready to do it.
Yeah, good.
Give us an opportunity. Here's the thing: anglers trust their state natural resource agencies much more than they do NOAA. So they're if there's an advantage for them, if they see a relief here to these very short seasons, if we just report our data and be a part of the process, they're willing to do it.
Anything's better than a day, man.
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
holy smokes. Connor, go ahead and jump in
Yeah,
there.
I mean, I'll just say really strong precedent for state-led management on the Gulf side, and I mean, like you said, anything's better than a day. So, I mean, no, just commend the work that Chris has done, and some of my colleagues at ASA, Martha Guyas, Gary Jennings, a lot of folks down, working in this issue on the South Atlantic, and to the degree that we're able to learn from successful state management. We need to replicate that in areas where the data has just failed, and NOAA has just failed to really provide for a lot of strong economic interest and get into this really prized fishery. So
Yeah, I think one of the keys here, and what was some of the reluctance in the South Atlantic side, was because of the calibration issue that we had pop up 2 years ago in the Gulf. Because in the Gulf, basically, essentially, all 5 of the Gulf states basically just kind of developed their own data collection program because they
Right.
realized what was working, what was going on with MRIP just wasn't working.
Right.
And each state is so different, and their angling community is so different. And when they fish and how far offshore they fish is so different that they all kind of came up with different data collection programs that kind of fit those states. Well, when you have to reconcile all that back to one federal number because the Gulf is managed as one quota, when you try to bring all that back together, the data wasn't really matching up that well, so it was comparable so much, and that was within each individual state. But when you tried to bring it to the full the full stock in the Gulf, it was a challenge.
Mhm.
And they're working through that now to where they can take their data collection programs, build those out a little bit more so that they're more cohesive amongst the 5 Gulf states, and so that moving forward could be used in stock assessments. There was reluctance on the South Link side seeing all that calibration issue. What they've solved this time around, though, when they developed these EFPs, is that they were already thinking about how they were talking with one another about how they're going to develop their data collection programs so that they're much more similar from right out of the get-go, so that it'll be one number that they can report total for the entire South Atlantic.
I feel like I've asked you, and we got a couple minutes left. I want to be respectful of your time. If I'm wrong, correct me, but didn't we have a discussion about this being modeled mid-Atlantic North as it concerns stripers? And how, because we don't report, at least up by
Right.
my territory, we don't. We just go out there and catch and adhere to the slot, if you have integrity and you're being honest. But like, as far as that discard or even what you're catching, like, unless the CO connects with you at the ramp or out on the water, like, they don't know.
Yeah. Well, striped bass are managed a little bit differently. They're managed by the ASMFC, Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, which is
Okay.
a compact between all the states. But they still use MRIP data for these landings, and even at the last ASMFC meeting,
Right.
the problems with MRIP keep coming back up.
Right.
So the potential for states to develop individual data collection programs for striped bass and other species, maybe it's there. It's not.
I guess that's what
nearly as baked yet.
I guess that's what I'm
there.
asking.
Yeah.
Is this transferable to something like that?
I think it will be once the South Atlantic get their programs up and going, show the success. We have a longer season because the stock continues to grow and is in great shape. It's like, all right, well, we got the same problem with bluefish.
Right.
What can we do to be able to get better handle on that? It's going to come back to the states.
Mhm.
The one federal data collection program, the one size fits all approach, does not
No, does
for
not.
individual species that are managed in short seasons. It just
And,
doesn't.
and as you're talking, I come to mind. I remember, golly days, this got to be in the last 15 years. Water temperatures were changing, and black sea bass were migrating north into brackish areas of New Hampshire, the Piscataqua River, and there was no limits on them, and people were just going out there jigging for them, just hammering black sea bass. What do you do? So then they had to go in, the state had to go in and adjust it and how their seasons and bag limits and stuff like that. Great triggerfish was another one. Like,
Mhm.
all of a sudden, like, what
Mhm.
the hell? To your point, things change,
Yeah.
and it's gotta be able to be done in real time at the state level, work with the agency. And anyway, as a non-pro like you gentlemen, I just see it as this could be transferable, and it seems
Oh,
at
absolutely.
least a conversation to be had.
Right. No, it's actually it's shown to be successful in other areas, and it's going to continue to be successful in the Southeast in general, and we're optimistic about that. And I think we will start to see more and more lessons learned and applied elsewhere of how we can be more responsive to what's going on in the population today, allow anglers ample opportunity to partake of that resource, and allow them to be more part of the process than they are now.
Parting thoughts, Connor?
I think Chris summed it up, really nice there. I mean, learn from these lessons of what's worked and, where we can see systems that, capture data accurately and can, provide for, again, ample angler access. That remains, really important. But,
Yeah.
I think other than that, I really thank you for your time and, talking through these issues. And, I really appreciate it.
It's important. Obviously, we appreciate the partnership and working together. Before I release you back to what has been a fantastic summit so far, I want to just hit you with a couple fun questions if you'd entertain me, especially when it comes to fishing. Can you, both of you, we'll start with Chris. What's your earliest memory in the outdoors as it pertains to fishing?
Earliest memory was actually, uh, uh, as I recall, I was 5 years old when my grandmother took me fishing. The first time that I remember going fishing, and they had a little farm, had some chores to do, but she talked up fishing for the last couple of days, and she wanted to take me. So they had a little creek, maybe in your neck of the woods, but creek in
No,
Arkansas.
we have creeks.
You got creeks?
Yeah,
I don't
somewhere
know which states are creeks.
somewhere
or
in
creeks.
between. It's a creek.
Well, it's creeks in Arkansas, so we had a little creek down there, and we got. She was an advanced angler. She had the Zebco 33, not even the king pole. But she had a Zebco 33,
Heck yeah.
and we dug up some redworms there in the feed lot, and I can remember her straw hat. That she had this giant straw hat, almost like a sombrero, but she was very fair skinned, didn't want to get sunburned, so she had the big straw hat. And I can just remember going down to the creek and catching today. Now that I'm a fisheries biologist guy, I know that they were green sunfish, but they just seem like giant fish.
Oh,
and
good fighting
I
fish
I
too
can
for kids.
still smell to this day I can smell what the creek smelled like. It was just it's that awesome. It's that awesome connection with nature. My first real time to really experience it. And I was ruined after that. I mean, I was fishing for.
And here you are.
Yep.
How about you, Connor?
Yeah, I think like Chris, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I remember, some days heading up to Lake Temescal in California, either collecting night crawlers or balling up little power bait.
Yeah.
And just feeling the tug of a little bluegill. But when you're 4 or 5 years old, that feels like
When you're 45 years old, it feels awesome.
And man, I just remember those early memories and just being hooked from there.
Yeah.
And of course, just kind of just getting to grow up and continue to grow and fish a lot of saltwater. As a kid too. That was really just enjoyable. That got me hooked on fish for life. Yeah.
That's awesome. You talk about that smell. I can smell it too. As you're talking about, I can smell the fish slime on my hands and that water smell and the algae. It's all the same. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes. I mean, that creek rose and fell all the time. So flooding vegetation, whenever it'd fall off, you'd start to smell that decay just a little bit.
Yeah.
Wasn't a bad smell, wasn't it? Unpleasant.
Right.
Just
It's just what it was.
Smell of water mixing with land, and hearing the frogs, and it was a great time catching a lot of green sunfish.
Yeah. Maybe a little added repel in there too. I can smell that. Stupid mosquitoes. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for entertaining the fun question there. Appreciate the testimonial there, and have a great NAS Summit. Rest of it.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right.
Appreciate it, Fred.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.